Hello and welcome to In the Court of Wenton Knave. Today we are doing The Man from Utopia. As I said last week, there's an argument that the rock album's kind of suffered as a result of him being more interested in the orchestral stuff and the electronic stuff. Perhaps, maybe. At this time he was involved with the LSO, actually, doing quite a historic collaboration. Well, not really a collaboration, they were playing his music, really. But more on that later. We're talking about The Man from Utopia. I don't think this is considered a great Zappa album. I really like it for whatever reason. There's some interesting stuff on there. It's certainly not bland. You could never accuse it of being bland. Another thing that was happening around this time, interestingly, is that Bob Dylan approached Zappa to produce his album, believe it or not. Apparently he turned up at the door and rang the buzzer and said, "Hello, it's Bob Dylan." And he was like, "Is it really Bob Dylan?" And he looked on the camera and yet there he was, standing there as Bob Dylan. And I think Frank was just, okay, let's try this then, because it was a very strange thing. Bob Dylan's not really a humorous character, so why would he want someone like Zappa? That never happened, and in the end, actually, I think Mark Knopfler ended up producing his album, so a bit strange, a bit different than that. But yeah, there's a lot of this album I really like. There's some more Sprechstimme, or Splice on this album, the singing, talking stuff, as on Tinseltown Rebellion, featuring Bobby Martin. I think last week there was a similar track on Drowning Witch called I Come From Nowhere, and I think I said I thought it was Roy Estrada. It's not. I think it's Bobby Martin, because Bobby Martin does that stuff on here and it's very amusing. The first song, Cocaine Decisions, obviously a song about people who make terrible decisions because they're on cocaine, and it is particularly a direct attack on record company executives who are snorting cocaine and making decisions which are about millions and millions of dollars and affect people's lives. And and he says in the lyrics, this is stuff that affects his life because people are on drugs. Musically, I hear a similarity with the melody on Little Green Rosetta, so he's kind of reusing something there. Might not be conscious, I don't know. So it's alright. The second track is called Sex. I suppose it's another bluesy kind of thing, like Cosmic Debris, that kind of thing, kind of without the charm really. It's a bit boring. But track 3, Tink Walks Amok, is where it starts to get a bit more interesting. It is funky bass heaven. When I say funky bass, it's not funky. It's not that kind of funky. It's a European style of melody. So that awkwardness of European melodies is in there with the funky bass, and that's really great. Supposedly there were better live versions of that. More on that in a few weeks. Now track 4 is The Radio Is Broken. You've got Bobby Martin and Frank singing Sprechstimme stuff, singing, talking, all about, I think there's some 60s sci-fi stuff in there. I mean, it's a similar style to I Came From Nowhere on Drowning Witch, but taking it much more extreme, whereas that song was actually quite generic in many ways. This is complex stuff. Apparently part of the bass line is from a song called My Sharina by a band called The Knacks, I think. But there's a lot going on there. It's very, very funny. You hear them laugh when he says the radio is broken, it don't work no more. It makes me laugh every time I hear it. So I think it is wonderful. I suspect it's not for everyone though, including Zappa fans, I think. But I love stuff like that. I think it's just great. I mean, part of the reason it's funny is, he's got Ray White and Knight Willis in the band, and instead he's just making silly voices with Bobby Martin, and that in itself is funny. Track 5, We Are Not Alone. Always liked this track. I originally heard this on a compilation called Cheap Thrills. It is just a great, catchy melody, possibly homage to the R&B, his R&B heroes. A bit of saxophone melody and a bit of bouncy guitar. Really, really good. You could recommend that to anyone to listen to. Anyone could listen to it, and it's as good as it can get. And then The Dangerous Kitchen, another one of my very favourite Zappa pieces. I believe it was one of Frank's favourite as well. I think he really liked it as well. More Sprechstimme, this time about how dangerous kitchens are. Sometimes the milk can hurt you. Very funny. He called these things meltdown events, and you have variable melody. The pitches will be variable, the rhythm will be variable. And somehow he had a method where the band could follow what he was doing, just sort of talking about the events in the news or whatever. This obviously is a written piece though, although it was performed live, and I think then what Steve Vai did, he transcribed the vocals, played them on guitar. That's no mean feat, and it is very close to the vocals. Frank did say it's not exact, but to anyone else, it's as good as you can get, and it's a really interesting piece of music. Again, like The Radio Is Broken, it's not for everyone, but I think it is fantastic. Top 10. That's a top 10 song for me. Okay, so after all that craziness, we have The Man from Utopia meets Mary Lou. It doesn't actually have the song Mary Lou in there, although it is credited to some of the writers. But it is a doo-wop medley of a couple of different doo-wop songs. Perfect place on the album. Great to listen to. Why not? The next song, it's even got a cheesy key change at the end as well. That's very cool. The next song, Stick Together. This is a reggae song. Probably one of his most reggae tracks in the whole thing, the vocals and the melody and everything and the rhythm are all reggae-esque. I mean, usually when he'd use reggae, it was just the rhythm. So that's interesting. But the lyrics are he's anti. I think one of his first anti-union songs. He did quite a few of those. He wasn't very happy with unions, obviously. Run by the mob. Unions were very destructive at this time, so he was not happy about those. It's that kind of opinion which I think confuses people often, in that people want to like to categorise people politically in either two different ways. And of course, really, the Zappa point of view is probably a very widely held point of view, but it's one that, well, for whatever reason, possibly media control, whatever, it's not something people see as a thing. So that's interesting. But anyway, the next song is, we've reached it. We've got here the Jazz Discharge Party Hats. Possibly in his whole output, this has to be probably the most disgusting song. It's more Sprechstimme, not as definitive as Dangerous Kitchen or Radio is Broken, but still very funny because he's telling the story of what some of the band members have been doing. It is truly disgusting, involving panties, and it's like punching an eclair. There is nothing else that can be said, really. Next song, Luigi and the Wise Guys, an a cappella bit of doo-wop. Apparently this was a bonus track on the CD version. It has a very sort of cold, sort of dehumanising sound. There's something unmelodic about the sound of it. Maybe because it's digitally recorded, but I mean, in a sense, it reminds me of the feel of Ruben and the Jets, or the later what is actually the later version of Ruben and the Jets. And it's okay. The album ends on Moggio, or Moggio. No, it's Moggio. Moggio, partially credited to Diva, his daughter, because Moggio was apparently a small father that she had living under her pillow, and her dad wasn't there when he was up on tour. Nothing to do with the music. Music is another complex piece, 2.5 minutes, that kind of thing, but with lots of guitar, and there's some very, very challenging guitar on there that Steve Vai had to play. I'm pretty sure that would have been beyond Frank playing guitars. That's where you got Vai to do it. But having said that, it isn't overwritten. I mean, people complain about some of Zappa's stuff being overwritten. I mean, I like that very, very complex stuff, but this is very listenable. I think it influenced Vai quite a lot. You take the complex bass out, you've got something much more like a Vai composition. It's very good. Ending what I think is a great album, actually, mostly, but not necessarily loved by all. See you next time.